There was an old toy shop at the end of a forgotten street, where no one ever went. Yet, on certain nights, when the wind howled through the town, passers-by swore they saw a faint golden glow flickering through its dusty windows. Some say the shop hides a secret. No one knew why. No one dared to step inside. Until one night, someone did. Once, in a quiet town nestled between rolling hills, there stood a small toy shop. The windows were frosted with time, the golden letters above the door faded, whispering a name long forgotten. Inside, beneath layers of dust and moonlight, rows of toys sat on wooden shelves, waiting. And deep within the shop, in the very back room, lived the toymaker. He was an old man, with silver-threaded hair and hands worn by time. Once, those hands had been nimble, carving wood, stitching fabric, breathing life into toys. But the world had changed. No one wanted hand-carved dolls or clockwork animals anymore. The old ways were fading, forgotten. Every night, by the dim glow of an oil lamp, the toymaker would sit at his workbench, polishing his creations with a bittersweet smile. Yet, something strange was happening in the shop. Some mornings, he would find his tools misplaced. Toys slightly moved, a faint scent of lavender lingering in the air, though he lived alone. Then, one fateful evening, as the wind howled through the narrow streets, the shop bell rang. The toymaker looked up. Standing in the doorway was a young girl. She wore a thin coat, her cheeks pink from the cold. Her wide, curious eyes scanned the shop, as if stepping into a place that existed outside of time. "Do you make them?" she asked, pointing at the wooden figures on the shelves. The toymaker hesitated, then nodded. She stepped forward, running her fingers over the delicate carvings. "They feel different, like they have stories." The toymaker smiled. "They do." The girl listened as he spoke. A soldier who had once marched bravely, a ballerina who had danced in a grand castle, a little fox who had guided lost travelers home. "These are not just toys," he whispered. "They remember." The girl's fingers trembled over a small wooden bird. "And this one?" The toymaker's gaze softened. "Ah, that one was made for a boy who never came back." A pause. The girl held the bird closer. "What happened to him?" The toymaker sighed. "Time took him away." The girl turned to the toymaker, her voice barely above a whisper. "But you still wait for him?" The old man's hands gripped the edges of his workbench. He nodded but said nothing. A heavy silence filled the shop. And then something happened. The toys trembled, ever so slightly. A golden glow flickered around them, like fireflies trapped in wood. The girl gasped. "They really do remember." The toymaker's eyes widened. He hadn't seen the magic in years. It had faded with the world's belief. But now, here, in this moment, it was alive again. The girl placed the wooden bird into the toymaker's hands. Maybe someone else needs this story now." The old man looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time in years, he saw not just a customer, but something more. A bridge between the past and the present. With trembling hands, he wrapped the little bird and gave it to her. "Thank you," she whispered. And then she was gone. The next morning, the toymaker stepped outside. The street was still quiet, but something felt different. He glanced at the snow, The girl's footprints trailed away, vanishing at the street's end. A strange feeling settled in his chest. Slowly, he reached for an old ledger inside his shop, its pages yellowed with time. His trembling fingers flipped through the records, and then he stopped. The girl's name. It was written in his own handwriting, from 70 years ago. His breath caught. Heart pounding, he turned to the wooden bird she had taken. The dust around it remained untouched. It was still there, exactly where he had left it. Had she ever been there at all? The toys flickered again, their golden glow soft and warm, and in the silence he heard a whisper, not from outside, but from the wood, the walls, the very heart of the shop. Some stories never fade. The toymaker smiled through misted eyes. Perhaps some things are only forgotten until someone remembers them again. And that night, for the first time in years, the little toy shop glowed once more, waiting for the next visitor to hear its stories.